So there are a lot of different kinds of wild.
The North American wild grape, the small ones that have, some people say have a mild blueberry flavor and a tart flavor, are called fox grapes usually. And then there's the concrete grapes from Europe, and those are the other grapes that generally grow in this region. Other grapes you guys usually need a drier climate.
Isn't there a trait about like the tendrils at the end are supposed to be coarse, and that distinguishes
No, I've never. The only poisonous grape I'm aware of is porcelainberry. And that usually grows zone 6 and higher. And that's an Asian variety that comes in various colors. Pin cherry, North American wild cherry. Usually this grows at higher elevations, and it's a true cherry. There's another type of wild cherry which is similar size and shape, small black cherry about that big. It's called a choke cherry. It is actually a type of very small plum that's more common at lower elevations like this. There's another pin cherry. And you can tell North American wild cherries because they have a slightly more leathery leaf than the cultivated cherries, and less maceration of leaf. This is a honey-lipped seedling. And then those right there are multiflora rose, and when the hips are soft after the first freeze, they usually taste kind of like sun-dried tomato, but you have to pick the seeds out.
Do people use those tips as well?
Yeah.
As they do other roses?
Yep. They're just small. Here's another smoke bush.
Yeah.
Gotta get them before the bugs do that.
You know if a bug got to it.
It'll be split along the side,
Oh.
and often they'll start to rot.
Are you going next tonight?
Oh, what's going on next? Oh yeah. The Cretaceous version of plantain has been preserved as a landscaping plant. I think it's from Central Asia. Most landscaping plants are. And you can actually use this like plantain as a poultice for wounds and irritations and stings and burns and all sorts of things. And you can eat them, although I'm not a big fan of plantains. I find them to taste a little bit like mushrooms or dirt or something, which I'm not a big fan of.
You eat the leaves?
Yeah, people use them because they can sometimes be like giant hearts, not that big.
Yeah.
People use them to wrap things in. I've heard people making burritos out of plantain leaves.
Oh.
Is it violet?
That is a violet, yeah.
Is there anything that looks like a violet?
Not exactly, no. I mean, garlic mustard looks relatively similar to a violet, but you can tell the difference. And yeah, and then there's also ground ivy has a relatively similar leaf, but it has a different growing habit, and it tastes like lamb.
Ground ivy tastes like lamb?
Yeah. Because lambs eat ground ivy. And then this is garlic chives. And this is another autumn aster that's done flowering, but This, I believe, is a sugar maple. You can tell because it has 5 points to the leaf rather than a red maple, which has 3 points to the leaf. And a silver maple or Norway maple has much more silvery blue coloration to the leaf. So usually maples are tapped, and you can tap pretty much any maple, but sugar maples have a higher sugar content. In February, you tap them, and I don't often do it because I think of it as kind of like an invasive practice. And the maples are susceptible to disease now because of road salting, and so I don't do it. But I would say that if you wanted to tap a maple, I would think it would be a much better idea to tap it for water than to tap it for syrup, because it's a huge waste to boil it down into syrup. And maple water is almost like coconut water. It's a neutral pH. It's a very good electrolyte. It's very high in nutrients. And it's at a time of year when there's very few fresh things to eat, so eating it as a fresh nutrient resource is probably the best use of it. Yeah. Yeah. Do you know what this is?
Have we seen it yet?
We have. We've seen probably another one of these.
Is it the white mulberry?
Yes. Yep. You could tell it's a white mulberry because the lower leaves are fried by humidity damage. If it was a red mulberry, the leaf structure would be slightly less rounded, much more pinnate at the tips, and the leaves will stay perfectly intact throughout the season and turn yellow at the end of the season and drop off like an autumn leaf, as opposed to the white mulberry, where usually when the frost settles on them, all of the leaves get the moisture damage, crisp and fall off, and never change color. This is a white lilac that flowers in midsummer, called a privet. And some people have allergies to the blooms of this because they're high in latex, and some people are allergic to latex, so they're allergic to the pollen. And most people use them as a hedge and actually cut them right before they flower, and so most people don't see the flowers. And that might be a practice that was uptaken because of people being allergic. But some people love the smell. They think it's their favorite smell on the planet. So
Because lilacs have such a nice smell.
yeah,
So it's interesting.
it's like a more latexy form of a lilac smell.
What else did you identify as an inland source besides the white mulberry?
So chicory, dandelion, fleabane, daisy, chrysanthemum, sunflower, artichoke, and actually hollyberries are also edible. You just have to spit the seeds out, and they're a fatty winter berry that has a perfumey flavor and can be slightly bitter if you're not used to alkaloids. Trumpet vine, which is a Eurasian landscaping plant that's gone it's gone native, kind of, I guess you'd say, in urban areas and grows up lampposts and stuff like that. It's full of nitrates, like most members of the Leguminosae family, and it has a orange trumpet flower throughout a lot of the growing season.
But the pods are.
Yeah, the whole plant is to be avoided.
Yeah.
This right here is a pear coming up from seed.
Yeah.
Maybe coming out of the crack in the concrete. They seem to like that. Or it could just been cut back for a while. Or it's no, you know what it is? It's a stressed part of this euonymus. This is a semi-evergreen euonymus, and this is a boxwood, which is another plant like a yew that's used as a shrub but is initially a tree from Eurasia. And they often don't produce any kind of seed when they're being pruned as a shrub, but these have little male flowers on them and they're hermaphroditic. I just knocked off a female seed pod. You can hear the couple of seed pods rattling somewhere in there. Hear that? Very badly pruned crab apples. And these are recently planted Chinese dogwood. And the season for the fruit of these just finished, but they were really good. This is one of the dried fruits that's left behind. They get to be about the size of like this big when they're at their peak of ripeness, and the larger they are, often the paler pink they are. They can be almost a reddish pink when they're somewhat smaller, and they have a tendency to like to form more of a shrub formation, which is why most fruit trees do. That's why this is suckering down at the base here. And suckering is when, or it's also called water shoots, is when you have growth from directly out of the roots or the base of a trunk. And oftentimes that happens on grafted trees because the plant doesn't want to grow through the graft, it would rather grow around the graft. And so if you don't keep cutting off the water shoots, then both genetics will express themselves by growing fruit out of the base below the graft and also growing fruit above the graft. This right here is a white oak that they relatively recently pruned very badly, and I'm very upset about it. And it seems like they went at it again and pruned it again. Since I got upset about them pruning it, I didn't tell them, but these are just terrible cuts, going way too high. You don't need this much wind passage even in this valley, so they're just trying to keep people from getting to the nuts as far as I'm concerned, although that might not be their intention. But the nuts are all over the ground, but the squirrels have gotten most of them because white oak is a much sweeter, comparatively, oak than red oak, which is what most of the oaks around here are. And this is